Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Whale Stage. It's great to have you here. Croeso. This event has been kindly sponsored by the Elmley Foundation, so thank you to them for that. It's time now, finally, to welcome Alice Oseman, creator of the global smash hit Heartstopper. Alice will be in conversation with Jack Edwards, who creates content on BookTube and BookTok to encourage young people to read more. Jack is also one of Hay Festival's Thinkers in Residence this year. Alice will be signing Heartstopper and other books in the bookshop after this event. But now, please put your hands together for a heart-stopping welcome for Alice Oseman and Jack Edwards. Thank you.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
It's very exciting. Well, first and foremost, we are going to be having a chat. We're going to be talking about lots of different things, but I can't help but ask you, have you tried the Heartstopper Ice Cream yet?
No, but I really want to. I'm very excited.
I mean, it's quite a big deal when your books are so iconic. They have their own ice cream
Yes,
flavor. That's
agreed.
pretty big. Has anyone else tried the Heartstopper Ice Cream yet? Yeah? Is it good?
Okay, good.
Okay, great. We'll join you later for some ice cream. What is your favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, probs like cookies and cream with like chunky bits of cookie, for sure.
That sounds
Yeah.
phenomenal. Okay, not to take an ice cream tangent straight away, like my lactose intolerance is flaring up just with these questions, but if Charlie and Nick had a favorite ice cream flavor, what do you think it would be?
Ooh, I feel like Nick would love chocolate. He would just love anything sweet. Charlie, maybe like mint chocolate or something. Something a little bit not so mainstream.
Yeah.
I feel.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think we should incorporate that
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. Okay, and of course, that brings us on to Heartstopper. And I would love to know, how are you doing, Alice Oseman? Illustrator of the Year, best-selling graphic novel since records began. That is mental.
Yeah.
Have you had time to soak it all in and let it settle in your brain?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like I still can't quite wrap my head around like the journey and how massively Heartstopper has blown up, and it is just wonderful, and I feel so grateful that something I've made has brought so much joy, I guess.
And joy is definitely the word I think that I most relate to. The Oseman verse, I think, is joy that really comes through. Of course, there are lots of different things that you've written and created. I'd love to know how you decide what should be a graphic novel and what becomes a novella or a novel.
Well, I mean, Heartstopper is the only kind of graphic novel that I've done. So when I started working on the story of Heartstopper, I initially thought I was going to do it as a prose novel, because that's what I'd done before. Yeah. But when I sort of got into the plot, I realized it didn't have the kind of beginning, middle, end that a prose novel has. It's more of a serialized story, and that sort of story would suit being a webcomic, which gets updated like every week. And so it just kind of made sense. Yeah.
And maybe the fact that it is updated over time is what makes them feel kind of like a found family for a lot of us. You know, we feel like they're people that we're keeping up with and waiting to see. You know, when you catch up with someone, you're like, what's been going on in your life? I feel a bit like that with the Heartstopper characters.
Yeah.
Have any of your other projects started out as graphic novels and then you've thought, actually, no, this needs to be prose?
Honestly, not at all. Like, I was very committed to prose writing, and Heartstopper was like my first venture into making comics. And when I started it, I was like, yeah, this will be like a year-long project, and then I'll like get better at drawing and I'll make something else. It was not a 1 year long project.
How many years ago was that?
7 years.
Nice, good quick maths. And how did you get into webcomics? How did you kind of find that as a platform?
I think I was very online as a teenager.
Chronically online.
Chronically online.
You and me both.
Yes. And I was like really into Tumblr. That was really big when I was in my teens. And there was a really big kind of webcomic community on Tumblr. And that was where I discovered like, I think one of the first webcomics I read was Check Please, which some of you might have read.
We got
very
a fan.
Good. Yes. It's a very
see
good one. That was one of the first ones I read, but I read so many webcomics before starting Heartstopper.
Okay, and how old were you when you started working on your first one?
I must have been 21, I think.
And that was Heartstopper?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. And, were there people in your real life that you thought, I want to kind of create a character around that person, or were they more like an ideal person that you imagined, that you thought up?
Definitely more imagined. I mean, like, I'm always inspired by, like, real life and, people I meet, but I never base characters on real people, because the people will always find out if you do that. I promise.
Have you had any text messages from people being like, I think I'm Elle?
Oh yeah, no, 100%. When Solitaire, my first book, came out, all my friends were like, so this character is this person and this character is this person. I was like, no, they're made up.
Yeah. And maybe that's especially true for Loveless, which actually was the first of your works that I read, because, fun fact, we actually went to the same university.
We did.
And I think you graduated the year that I arrived. Is that something that you kind of see with Loveless, that people might say, hang on a minute,
Yeah.
I lived on your corridor at university, maybe that's me?
Yeah, I swear every time I've done an interview about Loveless, I always get asked, like, so is it an autobiography?
Right.
And it's like, no.
Yeah.
Like, all of my books are based in the real world. And for that reason, they take so much inspiration from, like, things I've experienced and things that I know. But it's all fiction, it's all imaginary.
Because actually, our university, Durham University, sometimes feels a bit fictional, because we've got some weird kind of traditions. Maybe you could tell everyone about the college family system that appears in Loveless.
Yeah, it's so when you are in your second year at Durham, you have to like get college married to someone, and then have college children who will be a first year who you're like mentoring. And
they're like a 19-year-old human, not like an actual
not an
child.
actual baby. But like the engagement is like a huge thing in Durham. It's like a very elaborate like proposal from the college husband to the college wife. Very heteronormative and embarrassing. It was. Did you? I assume you had.
Yeah, we did.
It was.
And people
horrible.
do like college proposals.
Yeah.
I remember one time someone did it on this bridge over the water. They got the whole band involved. Like the whole college band were on the bridge playing the favorite song of the person who was being proposed to, or like accosted on the bridge. If you could bring one character from another one of your projects into the Heartstopper universe, who would it be?
Oh, that's so tricky. I love my characters so much. I feel like Francis of Radio Silence would be really interesting, because obviously Alid from Radio Silence is in Heartstopper already. So I think bringing Francis in would be really interesting, like how she gets to know the Heartstopper gang. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Okay, we're gonna try. If we all actively encourage you, maybe we'll get this
little
crossover.
Cameo.
Yeah, and obviously you do have these crossovers. Is that kind of fun to play with, that you've got this book universe going on?
Yeah, I think that's so fun. Putting little references to other books in my books is just a fun little Easter egg for people to find. And I always love reading that in other people's books.
Have you read any Taylor Jenkins Reid? Because she does that a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that, but yeah.
Yeah, she kind of loves that. The Taylor Jenkins Reid cinematic universe is a real thing. Are there any Easter eggs that no one's noticed? Or any rogue ones?
Any rogue ones? Oh, I don't know. People are really good at guessing them.
Yeah.
Like in Radio Silence, there's a tiny reference to Nick and Charlie, just like appearing. And they're not named at all. They're just like described. And yet people immediately know that that's Nick and Charlie.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
So, let's talk about Heartstopper on Netflix. You might have seen it. That might have come into your head. What was it like filming your cameo appearance? Is it episode
8?
8.
Yeah. It was so fun. Well, actually, I was terrified. It was like the second to last day of the shoot. We were on we were in like a kind of disused train station where you can film on trains, and in like a super old train carriage, and that wasn't moving, by the way. It was all like green screened, and I just had to sit there like drawing, and I felt so like self-conscious because I just didn't know like how much of my face was going to be in the shot, but it was fine. It was really fun. Yeah.
And did you have to practice your like rocking motion?
Yeah, the director was like, okay, can you just like bob just to make it look like you're moving on a train? I was like okay.
Jostle a little bit. Yeah. It would be fun if we just decided to do the rest of this talk as if we were on a moving carriage.
Yeah.
And what was it like being on set, you know, getting to see what you'd imagined for all of these years essentially coming to life right in front of you? Was it kind of surreal? So
surreal, yeah. Especially the scenes that are like so word for word the comic. It's just seeing my imagination come to life in front of me. It was really mind-blowing, yeah.
And of course, as any of us who have read the graphic novels will have noticed, the actors look exactly like the characters. It's like they just developed them in a lab to look exactly like the illustrations that you drew. Was it weird doing the audition process and trying to work out who would be your Nick and Charlie, etc.?
Definitely, so weird, because it was important that we found people who looked like the comics, but it was equally important that we found people who like truly embodied the character and like really just felt like the character. So that's how we ended up with like the situation where like Kit, who auditioned for Charlie first, and we all were immediately like, no, that he's Nick, like he's clearly Nick. It's just like a feeling you get, like so hard to explain.
Yeah, like the poster is like looking for golden retriever energy.
Yeah, exactly.
And he understood the assignment.
He did.
Right?
He definitely did.
So, season 2 is coming. It's on the horizon.
It is.
When is it coming out?
August 3rd.
There we go. And is there anything that you can tell us? Any Hey exclusives that I won't tell anyone?
Very big question. Very big question. I mean, not really. Otherwise, yeah, I will be told off. But yeah, I'm just so excited. Everyone, I think most people who follow updates online will know that we went to Paris. So there's going to be some Paris drama, you know, seeing the sights, and yeah, just season 2 for me feels like the aim was to capture kind of the joy and the magic of season 1, while also feeling that the characters have like grown up and matured a little bit, and so we're exploring maybe some things that are a little bit darker than season 1. And the romances are getting a little bit more mature than they were in season 1. So it's like an elevation, I like to think, of season 1.
Yeah, and we do start to explore those themes a bit in book 4. What was that like for you to take these characters on that journey of course, they're getting older, they are maturing, and they're experiencing the world as young people. And like the hardest thing ever is being a young person. It's just so confusing and there's so much happening. Was it important to you to make sure that you explored the themes that a lot of your peers and other young people experience?
Yeah, definitely. Because the format of Heartstopper is kind of a slice of life story. Like it's very slow paced, and we are just like following Nick and Charlie and their friends as they're growing up and like through their kind of everyday lives. So I am just kind of slowly exploring various things that can affect teenagers.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, how your impact on the show too kind of explores those things. You mentioned Paris, which is going to be so exciting to get to see all the characters come together on this trip. And I wondered if you had a formative trip to Paris that inspired that part of the graphic novel.
I did not go to Paris as a school trip. I did go to France once, I think, when I was 12 on a school trip. But it was to Poitiers, I think. And I'm not even sure where that is. And I don't remember it that well. But I have been to Paris a couple of times. And I felt like that was a really fun place for the teens to go. Because it's kind of like... It's a believable like British school trip, I think, because you're just kind of going across the channel. You're not getting on a plane, and there's so much cool stuff to see. So yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, I actually remember going on a school trip when I think I was 14 to Paris, and it was a maths trip. to Disneyland, right?
Oh, right.
And you're like, okay, 2 and 2 equals 27, but sure. And we were given these maths workbooks to do at Disneyland, and when you were walking around Disney, you could see the bins were just full of these workbooks, and everyone was just on like Thunder Mountain, like, having the time of their lives. Do we get to see a lot of the cool kind of Paris landmarks in season?
We do, yeah. We filmed in Paris for, I think it was 9 days. At various different Paris locations. So it's like very real and cool and magical.
And do any of the cast speak French? Because I know that Nick does speak French.
Nick does speak French.
Does Kit speak French?
No. He had to have lessons. No one could speak French, so not that I know of. So
they do a little bit now.
They do, yeah. I hope so.
I'd love to talk about Isaac, who is a Netflix version of Heartstopper exclusive.
Yeah.
He's kind of a bit like Alid in a way. Will we get to see more from him in season 2, maybe exploring a bit more of his sexuality and that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I've spoken about it a little bit before online, but I'm really excited that there's going to be asexual and aromantic representation, Heartstopper, with Isaac. So I don't want to spoil anything about that storyline, but it is a part of season 2, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, and we do get to see your impact on the episodes. And if you follow Alice on Instagram, you will know you have been working so hard on getting this series to be everything that I'm sure you want it to be and everything that you imagined it would be. How important is it to you to make sure that it has that authentic Alice Oseman voice?
So important. I mean, I just care about Heartstopper so much. Like, it was my passion project when I started, and it still is. Like, it's so important to me that it's always something that I love, and it never kind of gets taken and twisted into something that I hate, which I feel like is always a danger when authors do book adaptations. It's always a risk. But I'm so lucky that I've been able to have so much control over writing it, and also just being there on set and talking to all the department heads and being really involved in like all the different aspects of the show. So fingers crossed you guys will love it as much as I do.
Yeah, and do you sometimes have to go in like ready to fight? You're like, no.
100%. Yeah, sometimes decisions, will be made, and I'll have to kind of put up a fight. But like that's all part of it.
And we appreciate so much that you do, because the series feels so true for the fans as well. That we love the graphic novel so much. So it's great to see that. Now you are working on creating future Heartstopper books. I'm so intrigued by whether, when you're now creating more Heartstopper, you're picturing the original images you had of Nick and Charlie, or whether you now see Kit and Joe.
It's a good question. I do still see my pictures of Nick and Charlie. Weirdly, I find it quite easy to kind of separate the two in my mind, because even when I am working on them simultaneously, like right now, obviously, my mind is in like season 2 territory for the TV show, but I'm also working on volume 5 of Heartstopper, and they're very two like distinct, separate things in my brain. So yeah, it's easier than you might think.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I was wondering if you start giving the characters like the traits that you've noticed from being around Kit and Joe so much.
People, I get a lot of comments like, Alice is drawing Nick and Charlie to look more like Kit and Joe. And it's like, I don't think I am. I think Kit and Joe just really look like Nick and Charlie.
It was funny, even when I was, preparing some questions for you today, I kept writing like Nick and Kit or like Nick and Joe, and I was like, wait, okay.
Wait, who are these people?
Yeah, I'm like getting them all muddled in my head. Have you had any memorable experiences getting to meet people who love the Heartstopper novels and show? Because I know it's been a crazy year for you, especially in the last year. Do you have any memorable experiences that you could tell us about?
Oh my gosh, I mean, so many. I feel like I've been able to meet so many readers, and it's always just such a lovely experience, and everyone's always so nice and wants to tell you their stories and like share art with you. I think like anytime I get given art by readers, that's like my favorite thing, because it's like I've made something that's inspired someone else to make something, and that's really cool. So yeah, I don't know.
Do you ever get ideas from fans who kind of come up to you and say, I think it'd be really cool if the characters went and did this? Or
I try not to, because I feel like that's, I love seeing fan art, and I love hearing about fans like being creative and, doing all that, but also that is kind of their space, and I don't want to be like letting their ideas have too much influence over the story. Otherwise it just gets so muddled, and
because there's a lot of cool kind of fan fiction as well. Do you ever dip into that?
I stay away from fan fiction. Okay. I think all authors should never read fan fiction of their own books. It's just dangerous waters.
Yeah, and we were speaking a little bit about fans. Now, you actually have some very cool A-list, A-plus lists fans of the show and of the book. So I was wondering if you have any ones that stand out of like where you got a little bit starstruck.
Yeah.
Drop some names.
Drop some names, okay. I mean, Dan Levy, I think he posted an Instagram story, and I replied like, oh my God, thank you for watching it. And he was like, yeah, I really enjoyed it, or something like that. And I was like, wow, because I love Schitt's Creek. Like, that's one of my favorite shows ever.
Yeah.
But also like Tan France and Bobby Burt from Queer Eye, like that was really cool. So yeah, it's crazy.
That's a win. And I was wondering if anyone in our audience today is interested in getting into creating graphic novels or novels of their own. Maybe you could give us a wave if you are interested. Yeah, it's so exciting to see. So many.
Yeah.
That's great. There's some competition, so we better get writing Heartstopper Volume 5. But I was wondering what your tips would be for how someone can get started with creating their own graphic novel.
Well, I think I have so many tips. I feel like for graphic novels, when people ask me like what's my writing tips, I feel like I have nothing to say. But graphic novels, I can help. Yeah. Firstly, experiment with your style and find a style that you like to draw, that doesn't take too much time, that's not going to bore you. Style in webcomics is so important if you're going to make it to the end. And also making a story that you want to read, I think is really important, and finding that story that just really excites you. Because webcomics are such a long process. I mean, webcomics can take years and years and years to complete. And if you're going to make it to the end, it needs to be a story that you really care about. But also, they don't need to be years long. Make little comics. Little comics can be good and fun. So
that's like you're telling yourself.
No, yeah, literally. Don't do it for 7 years. No, you could if you wanted to. But yeah, so just don't put pressure on yourself and make whatever you want to make.
I love that. Are there any webcomics that you read or looked at that inspired you?
Oh, so many. There's a webcomic called Les Normaux by a webcomic artist called Night JJ, I believe they're called. And it's kind of like a fantasy world. It's Paris, but it's fantasy, and there's vampires and witches, and everyone's kind of supernatural.
That is a bit like Paris sometimes.
Yeah, but it's also it's not fantasy. It's still kind of about relationships and friendships and drama, and the art style is so beautiful. And I've been reading it for years, so that's one of my favorites.
And it is important to write about love and friendship and the relationships that we have, because that is what consumes us on a day-to-day basis. Is it important to you to make sure that you talk about things that we experience on a daily basis that are kind of universal, as opposed to those kind of big fantasy dramas?
Yeah, for me, absolutely. Like, that is just what I like to write. And, people like to write different things. But for me, I love writing about real things, like, relationships and friendships and, things that people experience while they're growing up and in their daily lives. That is just the stuff that interests me, I guess, rather than like big fantasy worlds. So no
dragons and vampires.
No dragons yet.
Volume 5.
No.
6?
Well, you never know.
Okay, well, I'll hold out hope. Okay, we'll see. And you wrote your first novel at 17. That's crazy and very impressive. And I wanted to know, this has been a crazy year for you. How do you feel looking back? When you imagine 17-year-old Alice, what would you say to them?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. It's been a wild journey, and like every step of the journey has contributed to me getting to this point. So although, I would go back and just say to myself, like, keep making what you want to make, and like just listen to your heart. That sounds so cheesy, but it's true. Just like at that age, I was being like bombarded by opinions of what I should do with my life from other people, but I somehow found a way to like stay true to what I wanted to do with my time and managed to write a book. So keep doing that.
Yeah, sometimes the cheesy advice is the best advice, right?
Agreed.
Like, give me a whole charcuterie board of that cheese. I'll take it any day. What do you do to relax and unwind?
Relax? What's that?
Have you? I'll get the dictionary out and explain it to you later on, because I think you might need it.
Yeah.
But because you now work in this industry, do you still find reading and writing and drawing and illustrating, do you still find that relaxing?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I find little moments. I am a workaholic for sure, but like I do try and make the effort to like have downtime. I'm really into audiobooks at the moment. Like before I go to sleep, just like laying there and listening to a story is so nice.
Yeah.
And I'm also playing a lot of Tears of the Kingdom right now. I'm sure some of you are as well. Very obsessed with that. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any audiobook recommendations that really help you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I listened to The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane, which is a queer romance. I listened to it twice because it was so good. And just like, I love to just listen to like upbeat, cheesy, fun, like romance novels on audio, because you can literally just zone out and like, it's so chill.
Just enjoy, feel cozy.
Yeah.
You know what I love? A good celebrity memoir as an audiobook.
Yeah.
You get to hear it in their
Yes.
voice. I just listened to Paris Hilton's memoir,
Oh.
and I have to say, so good. Yeah, my biggest surprise of the year so far. I was like, this is really, really good, and I want everyone to read it.
Amazing.
So there you go. You didn't think Paris Hilton would get a plug at an Alice Oseman talk, but there it is. And I was wondering if you have next steps in mind for the Heartstopper characters. We'll go on to some audience questions in a moment, but before we do, so get thinking with your questions, but before we do, I'm wondering, is there an ending in mind for the Heartstopper series, and what is next for these wonderful characters?
Yeah, well, there is an ending. I've known what the ending will be for years, I think. I've always had that end point in mind. And I said this before, and it's not really a spoiler, but like when Nick leaves school to go to university and their kind of time at school together is over, that's going to kind of be roughly the end point. But, you know, how we get there and what happens until then is another matter. And I don't want to spoil anything. So, yeah, we've got Volume 5 and Volume 6 to come. Yeah, hope you're excited.
And you can pre-order Volume 5, is that right?
Indeed, yes.
There you go. So get on it. That's your homework. And now we would love to take some audience questions. I think hopefully some mics will be coming round to you, and we've got some lovely people with panels. So we'll start with number 2. Great.
Hi. So sorry. For Radio Silence, it's personally my favourite book of yours. When I'm reading it, Alid and Francis read as very autism coded, and was that intentional, or was that just a byproduct of being in a fandom space?
It wasn't intentional, but like a lot of people have said that they identify with my characters and see them as being autistic. And I'm like so up for those headcanons. Like, absolutely, if you want to see any of my characters as being autistic, then 100% go for it. So yeah.
Great. Number 1?
Hello. I was wondering, in the graphic novel, is there the possibility of us being introduced to any new characters, or is it just the characters that we already have?
Spoilers.
Spoilers. I don't know. I think Volume 5, there aren't really any new characters. It's very focused on our existing cast. But Volume 6, I'm still in the sort of planning process. I don't know exactly what is going to happen in Volume 6, so who knows?
What we do know, I think, though, is that there are some new characters in Season 2 of the show,
yes,
right?
That is correct.
Are we allowed to talk about that?
Yeah, I think so.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are some new characters.
Yeah, new characters in Season 2. We've got... Who have we got? We've got Sahar, who you may know from the graphic novels. Is a new friend of Tara, Darcy, and Elle. David, who is Nick's older brother and Nick's dad as well. So yeah,
Great.
Much to come.
Lots to come. And was that fun to get to create some characters that aren't in the graphic novels, that are just exclusively for the show?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, because we've got a couple of new friends for Elle who are not in the books at all. That's really fun, and like I really enjoyed doing that in Season 1 as well with Isaac and Imogen. So yeah.
Fun. Number 2 down here.
Hi.
Hello.
Oh God, sorry. Is it difficult to get into publishing a book at in your teens, like if you were 17 when you first wrote your book, and is that really difficult to do if you're young? Just wondering.
That's a good question. It's hard to get a book published, I'd say. I think everyone would kind of agree with that. But in terms of being young, I think if you're going like the traditional route of like querying agents and stuff like that, a good agent would not see your age as being detrimental at all. And also, when you're querying, you don't need to tell them how old you are. I didn't tell mine how old I was when I was querying. I didn't put my age. So none of the agents knew that I was 18 at the time. So, yeah.
That's a really interesting point. And what were kind of your first steps? Like, how did you start with the process of querying, and who did you what platforms did you use to find people that you might want to email?
I think the first thing I did was I got the Writers and Artists Yearbook, which is like an annual that's published every year that has loads of agents' details in it, and I just highlighted all the ones that I thought I was going to query, and then I did all the ones who I could do it by email first, and that's where I sort of met my agent.
Great. Yeah. There you go. Number 1.
Hi, I was just wondering, how do you think Nick and Charlie fit in with the olive theory?
I don't know what that is. I'm sorry.
Olive theory.
Which one of them likes olives and which one of them doesn't?
Okay. So the olive theory, if I'm right, is that in every good relationship, one person likes olives and one doesn't.
I love that. That's hilarious. I think Charlie likes olives and Nick doesn't like olives. Nick strikes me as being someone who's a tiny bit of a picky eater in terms of he likes childish food. I don't know why, I just get that vibe.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
Weirdly, I get that.
Yeah.
What about the other couples in Heartstopper?
Ooh. Okay, Tara and Darcy. I feel like maybe Darcy eats olives because I feel like Darcy could just eat anything, and Tara doesn't. Town Elle, I feel like Elle would like olives because she's like more sophisticated. Okay. But Tao maybe wouldn't. So there you go.
Do you agree?
Okay.
You're happy? Yeah. We would have like now a discourse on.
Oh no, the discourse has begun.
Do we agree? Two, great.
Okay.
Hey.
Who are your favourite characters except from Nick and Charlie?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I love them all. They're all my children. I love Tao so much. I think he's sometimes a bit misunderstood by people who've watched or read Heartstopper. He is very like opinionated and headstrong and stubborn, but it's all out of love for his friends, and I love that about him. So yeah.
I agree. I love that we get to explore that over time and how he interacts in different scenarios. And, you know, maybe at first you might see it as like a hard exterior, but we get to see that softness underneath as well. Number one?
Hi. I Was Born for This is a fantastic book. I absolutely loved it. I really identified with the main characters and the community that they had in Bandom. I'm wondering how much of your own experiences filled into those characters and their community, and how much might have been research in other fans.
A lot of it was research, because I was never in like a band fandom growing up. But then I grew up on Tumblr, so I was like very much in the fandom space and like very aware of like so many different fandoms. And like I Was Born for This was not necessarily about band fandom specifically. For me, it was more about just like real person fandoms and people's attitudes towards celebrities and things like that. So yeah, I took inspiration from so many different fandoms. Yeah, it was. I love that book. It was so fun to write.
Right at the back, number two.
How come Alid wasn't in the Netflix series?
Well, good question. So, Alid is a character in Heartstopper, for those of you who don't know, in the books. And he is also one of the main characters of one of my novels, Radio Silence. And in Radio Silence, Alid has his own story, various things that are going on with him in his like family life and his friendships. And so that is all kind of going on in the background of Heartstopper, the graphic novels. And if I put Alid in the show, I would either have to not give him a story at all and completely ignore everything that's going on in Radio Silence, or I would have to actually show things that are going on in Radio Silence in the Heartstopper show, which I didn't really want to do because it's the Heartstopper show, it's not the Radio Silence show. So it made so much more sense to just remove him as a character. And for that reason, well, because of that, we can now do a Radio Silence adaptation if we want to at some point, which we wouldn't be able to do if Alid was in Heartstopper, the show. So complicated.
Yeah. But instead we get lovely Isaac.
Get Isaac. And with Isaac, I can do whatever I want with his character because he doesn't have an existing story in a completely other book.
Yeah.
So.
That kind of sounds like it ended up being quite fun and maybe for the best anyway.
It was.
Number one is... Oh, yeah, there. On two? Sorry, one.
Hi. Why was Charlie's brother not put into the series?
Another good question.
He is so cute.
Yeah, I know. He's super cute. Couple of reasons. Firstly, the episodes of Heartstopper are very short. They're only half an hour long. And Oliver doesn't contribute anything to the story, well, the plot, I'd say. And by taking him out, we had more room to explore the other characters and have more space for Nick and Charlie's story. Secondly, Oliver in Heartstopper is like six or seven, I think. And if we had cast an actor, a 6-year-old actor in season 1, he would now look completely different as he's like 8 or 9 now. So that would present some issues, considering season 2 begins like a day after the end of season 1. It would be, weird.
And suddenly Oliver looks like he's got a job and a mortgage. Oliver's growing a mustache. It's like, wait a minute, weren't you 6? Number 2 down here.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you for Heartstopper, and it kind of kick-started a process for me of getting more queer books into the school library. And I just wondered if you are surprised by how much impact Heartstopper's had on the generation of people that grew up under Section 28.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously the target audience for the show and the books is teenagers, but it has really found such an amazing audience of adults and older readers as well. And that's just been really wonderful to see. I think it just goes to show that everyone wants to kind of read about queer joy for whatever reason that is. Whether that's, a teen kind of exploring who they are, or an older person feeling nostalgia for their own past or how their past could have been different. So, yeah, it's really, really lovely, yeah.
Do you have a Pride Month read that you're looking forward to this month?
Ooh.
What is on Alice Oseman's bookshelf?
I mean, I was listening to an audiobook in the car on the way here called Spellbound by F.T. Lukens. Mm-hmm. And it's just a lovely queer YA romance with a non-binary lead, which is amazing. And it's like a fantasy, but in a world where there's like no homophobia or transphobia. It's just like queer utopia fantasy, which I love. So that's my Pride read.
I think mine is Young Mungo by Douglas Stewart, because I loved his first book.
Okay.
And he's actually here, and I am fanboying. So if you see me not playing it cool, don't say anything. Number 1 at the top.
Me and my sister have a question for you.
Oh.
Who do you relate to the most?
Ooh, in Heartstopper, who do I relate to the most? Maybe Elle, because she's very arty and creative. But she's kind of quite like introverted, quite quiet, and kind of just does her own thing, which is also very me. So yeah.
Great. 2.
Hi. So obviously, Radio Silence is getting its own adaptation, hopefully. But are we going to see a little bit of this winter on Nick and Charlie in the Heartstopper storylines?
Well, firstly, there is no Radio Silence adaptation in the works. Just to clarify, that's just maybe potentially one day. Yeah, if we get to that point in the story in Heartstopper, the TV show, we will incorporate this winter and the Nick and Charlie novellas into the story. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Super exciting. Number 1 at the back.
Hi, thank you for your talk. You said earlier that your work and your books were really important to you. Can you articulate why they're important to you?
Wow, that is a big question. I mean, it's my passion. Writing and drawing is my passion and feels like it's the reason I wake up every day. It's just something that I love, and my stories keep me going. They really do. They feel like my reason to be. As cheesy as that sounds. So that's why they're important to me, I guess. Yeah.
Kind of become like a limb you can't imagine not having.
Yes,
I guess, at this
exactly,
point, right?
exactly.
Who you are. Number 2.
Hello.
Hey.
So obviously there's like Nick and Charlie, and there's This Winter, which are like novellas for Solitaire and Heartstopper. Would there possibly be any novellas in relation to like other books, like I Was Born for This or Radio Silence?
Ooh,
good question.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'd love to. I feel like I have no time to do that. But there are short stories for I Was Born for This and Loveless in the US editions of those books. Just in the back of the book, there's a little bonus story. But yeah, maybe one day I'll get to do a full novella for one of those books.
And you've been repackaging with the US covers too, right? So was that a fun process to get
it's
to
so fun.
go back to the drawing board, quite literally?
Yeah, I've just finished doing the new Radio Silence cover, and I'm so in love with it. I can't wait to share it.
Exciting. Number 1. Hi.
I love Heartstopper so much, and like all the other books that you've written. But what was your favourite book to write?
Ooh, favourite book to write. I mean, Heartstopper is the most enjoyable, I think, to make. But of my prose novels, I Was Born for This was the most fun to write because it's a very like action-y book. Like there's a lot of like drama and it all takes place in the space of 1 week and it's just like chaos. And that was like really fun to write. Yeah.
2. We also do have a few at the front as well. 2.
Hello. I was just wondering whether Olivia Colman continues to play Nick's mum, and if so, have you met her, and is she as lovely as she presents to be?
As delightful as we all want her to be.
Well, I'm not allowed to say whether she is coming back for season 2, but yes, I did meet her in the filming of season 1, and she's so nice. Like, she is so down to earth. For someone who's so astronomically famous and like celebrated, she is just the loveliest, most humble, like down to earth person. And yeah,
there's no way you're missing that day of film.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Yeah, down the front.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to say I'm very much not a teenager, but I went to school in Section 28. For those who don't know what that is, it's that our schools, when I was at school, were not allowed to talk about gay people at all. Which meant I didn't come out until I was in my late 20s because I didn't even know it was a thing. So I want to say thank you because I watched Heartstopper and oh my God, I wish that had been there when I was a teenager. And all of you who are teenagers are so lucky that you've got that. I do have a question though. Are you going to have a cameo in season 2?
I actually don't have a cameo in season 2. And honestly, the reason for that is because it was such a stressful filming experience. It was a lot of chaos and it was just very difficult to organise. But yeah.
I'd be like, I've casted myself as Olivia Colman's best friend.
Yeah.
And all of my scenes will be with Olivia Colman. And she's got lots of other famous relatives who I also... Nick's got a very famous family now.
Yes.
Number 1.
Hi, so I think as a young person growing up queer, having that one member of your family that's always quite supportive and always there for you is really important. And for Charlie, I kind of see Tori as that character. And I mean, I love Solitaire as well. And how do we see more of Tori in season 2 and her relationship with Charlie?
Yes, we do. Tori is definitely coming back for season 2. Yeah, there's... I don't want to reveal anything. I don't want to give spoilers, but yes, she will be back. Yeah, I'm excited.
So we can get excited for
yes.
that. Okay. 2. We have 2 more minutes so we can get some.
If Nick and Charlie were dogs, what breed would they be?
Ooh.
Oh, you should go into investigative journalism because we're getting the hard-hitting questions.
Now we're getting the hard-hitting questions. Yeah. Well, Nick's got to be a golden retriever, obviously. I feel like that's very obvious. But Charlie, what would Charlie be? I'm not good at dog breeds either.
Ooh.
Poodle. Did someone say poodle?
Poodle.
That's so cute.
That is really sweet.
Okay, we'll go with poodle because that's really adorable.
That's canon now. 1 over in the corner.
Yeah, okay, hi. Yeah. Thank you for your hard work and for what you've done for the community overall. As a few of the adults around, it's just nice to be able to know that the community and the youth as well has such a positive representation and all of that. But a bit unrelated, what have you what have you been listening to while writing the new book?
What have I been listening to? That is a good question. Well, when I'm writing, I like listening to soundtracks and like instrumental music. I feel like I listen to the Pride and Prejudice 2005 soundtrack repeatedly. Mm-hmm. It's so good. It's so good. So yeah.
I know you love your lo-fi too, right?
Oh, Lo-Fi Girl is my one true love. Me and Lo-Fi Girl against the world, truly.
I think we've got 30 seconds, so quick question. Yes.
How did you feel when you knew what would happen with Ben and Charlie in season 1 of Heartstopper?
I mean, yeah, I think it's a really important story, and I'm really glad we got to tell it in season 1. It was, and like Sebastian Croft did such an amazing job. And yeah, I think we really did it justice in the show, and I'm glad that we got that storyline out there. Yeah.
Incredible. Well, Alice, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for such interesting insights into the show and to the graphic novels. It's been really wonderful. So a huge round of applause for Alice.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And before you go, we do have this.
Just one more thing. Awarded annually since Britain's Olympic year in 2012 and crafted locally by Christopher Hamilton, the Hay Festival's medals draws inspiration from the original Olympic medal for poetry. We are honoured to award Alice Oseman our Medal for Fiction this year to mark her extraordinary commitment to storytelling in new media, offering a space for LGBTQ+ stories, enabling human rights to be shared, understood, and valued. Congratulations, Alice.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. Oh, amazing. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Oh, wow, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.